Welcome to Tool Training. Today we will cover the various tools that you will work with here at the Met and at the PAC when you build a set for a play or musical. Before we get started with the tools themselves, we must cover units of measure with Mr. Holland.
Okay, we're going to go over units of measurement. Units of measurement, time, money. These were all things that you had to learn to get from the second grade to third grade. I know, it's been a while. So let's go over it again, shall we? So I'm going to blow up an inch on this piece of wood and go over the measurements within that inch. And they just repeat over and over again, shall we? Here we go. Okay, so let's start with half. Half between 0 and 1 is right here. This is a ½ inch. If we break that up again, we actually reduce that down to 1/4. We never say 2/4 because it actually reduces down to 1/2. So over here we have 3/4 of an inch. Now if I break that up in half again, you can see a pattern emerging. So here I have 1/8. You can see that we've taken the bottom number each time and doubled it. So 1/8, 3/8, 5/8, and 7/8. So if we split it one more time, we're going to go to a 1/16 of an inch, because that's what we measure to, is a 1/16 of an inch. We're going to go 1/16, 3/16, 5/16, 7/16, 9/16, 11/16, 13/16, and 15/16. Those are all the measurements on a tape measure. So we will continue to repeat that process over and over and over again. We measure to a 1/16 of an inch because if I measured off a 1/16 of an inch and Mr. Day measured off a 1/16 of an inch, and let's say we put that together, we're going to end up being 1/8 of an inch off, and that would mean that our walls aren't straight, they don't come together, and by the time we build the entire set, every time if we're a 1/16 of an inch off, the set would not come together properly. So we ask that you measure and cut within a 1/16 of an inch. And we always err on the side of being long because you can always take it off, you can't put it on. We have no technology for that.
For our first tool, we're going to start with the drill. This is an impact driver. This is a pre-drill. And you use this often before you use this when putting the screw into a board. We have 3 varying sizes of screws. We have the 1 5/8, the 2½ inch, and the 3 inch. And we're going to show how much easier it is to put each one in with and without the pre-drill. An important technique when drilling in a screw, you want to make sure that the screw and the driver are in a straight line. The sleeve helps keep it straight. And then you want to apply pressure on top while it's pushed in. It's important to keep a steady pressure on the gun, on the drill, while pushing in the screw. When removing it, you must also apply the same amount of pressure. You must push for it to come out. Right now, we're going to show you a piece of pine and drilling into it with just a screw. Again, straight, pulling the sleeve over the screw, keeping the gun straight, keeping the drill straight. This can happen when you don't pre-drill. It'll sit above. And now we have the screw sticking out, and if we need to place something on top of that, that is going to cause about 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch. Again, we're going to try this without pre-drilling. We're going to do it on closer to the edge. We're going to see what happens when you don't pre-drill. You see the wood is starting to split. That's why you need to do a pre-drill whenever you're screwing into pine. It is important to do a pre-drill. So, let's remove the screw. Let's do a pre-drill just a little bit further away from it over here and show what happens to it when you pre-drill. That should be a nice pre-drill. Now, put the screw in. And look at that, no splits, it's smooth. We're going to go with a 1 5/8. And without pre-drilling, we're going to drill it in. Now that went in pretty easily by itself. Let's just try another one with a pre-drill. We'll try a new 1 5/8 inch screw into our pre-drill. See how much easier that goes in. It's quicker. And it also left a little crevice in here for the head of the screw to just sit in, so it then becomes flush. Let's try a 2 1/2 inch screw without a pre-drill. Went in pretty easy. But we already have this pre-drill hole here. We'll try that one with the 2 1/2 inch and see how quickly that goes in. Again, there's the head surfaced into the board, so it's smooth. All right, everyone, welcome to the chop saw. Before we get started, we're going to go over some PPE. These are the earmuffs. These help eliminate sound from the chop saw. It's a nice ripping sound. And then we also have our safety glasses. Because I already wear glasses, I have safety glasses that go over my glasses. It's important to use your safety glasses because they are rated for this kind of thing. Let's talk about some safety with the chop saw. First, you want to clear your area, make sure there's no debris when you are going to cut the wood. Make sure that your area is completely clear. That way, when you put your board against the fence, there's nothing in between you and the board, or the board and the fence. Now we have this, and you'll notice this symbol right here. Very important to keep your fingers away from the blade. Not only where the blade is, but where the blade is going to go. This orange area, we call it our no-go zone. Keep your hands, fingers, noses, and toes away from the no-go zone. And then back here, it shows you also that, again, there's that hand symbol. Your fingers, your toes, and whatever should not be back there at all. And then, when we pull the saw down, this removes itself out of the way of the saw blade so the blade can get to the material. When you're cutting, you want to make sure that your board is up against the fence. Often, people put their hand on the fence and on the board to hold it down. It kind of helps make the line straighter. Then you bring your chop saw to your line when you draw a line. We'll do that in a minute. Lift it up, thumb and then squeeze the handle. Now, did you notice how slow I was going? I wasn't going fast, I wasn't going turtle speed, but I was going at a moderate speed. And then, of course, we have our pencil, we have our wood, and we have our tape measure. I'm going to go with 6 inches. So, here we have our tape measure. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches. I'm going to mark with that line, and then I'm going to do this to show exactly where my blade should land. And with this cut, I've drawn the side that the blade is going to land on. That is the side I want my blade to be on. If I cut right on that line, I'm going to be off by 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch when I take my board when I'm done. Again, clear your area of all debris. Bring your board to the fence, to the mark. You bring your blade down. Line up your blade and your line. Let's check our measurement. 6 inches. Look at that. Right now, we're going to show you the many features of a chop saw, a miter saw, specifically our miter saw. It can cut at many different angles, simply by lifting that, making sure that is down, and then shifting, following this red mark right there. We're going to go to a 45-degree angle, and we're going to cut that on our wood. There we go. Lock it. When you are completely done using your chop saw, if you have moved it in any position for an angle cut, when you're done, you must return it back to 0. And lock it in place. All right, here we are in our IA shop, which stands for Industrial Arts. This is our scene shop where we have various tools again. You'll see the bandsaw, you'll see a drill, a sander, our CNC router. So here's our radial arm saw. The radial arm saw only goes in 2 directions, forwards and backwards. It doesn't go side to side or do any corner cuts. It is really good for doing multiple cuts on a piece of wood. If we need to make a lot of wood the same size for our frames and our flats, this is very good to have. While we're cutting, there are some things you need to be aware of. This is our no-go zone. Look, it's painted in red. It's not the pretty orange that we had at the other shop, but it is very bright. Hard to miss. Keep your fingers and toes and ears and nose out of it. And with our radial arm saw, you see this sticking out? It is not a handle. Don't grab it by this. This is a handle, not a handle. Handle. We're going to measure this piece of wood. I'm going to go 12 inches. Now, when we're cutting for the radial arm saw, we want to put our line closest to the blade. This is very important because you want to guide your blade by that line. And again, I'm drawing this line to the side that I'm not keeping. I'll take my piece of wood, I'll get it close. You notice it is not on. I bring the blade to the line and I guide it where it's really close to being right on top. Okay, I got it right where I want it. I'm going to do several cuts. Again, make sure your area is free of debris. Okay, I've got my stopper in place. Goggles. Mask. Stylish earmuffs. All right, here's the test. 12 inches. And look at that. That is so close. That is on the money. All right. Now that we have got this figured out, we have our block in place, we can make several pieces of wood like this without having to turn the blade off. And there we have several pieces of wood, all the same length. All right, now we're going to learn about our portable jigsaw. This is a jigsaw. It has safety features on it. This right here is a locking mechanism. I cannot turn it on as long as this is in the locked position. You know it's unlocked when you see that red tab on the other side. Now, it is a cutting machine. With our jigsaw, we can make very fine cuts into wood, and we can also make very shapely or squiggly cuts into wood as well. We're going to give you an example right now of a fine and squiggly cut. I'm going to take this pencil. I'm going to draw a wave across the board. Now I'm going to cut that with the jigsaw. I want to line up my blade with the line, and the piece of wood that I want to keep, I want to be on the other side of that line. I want to keep this piece, I want to get rid of this piece. So, I put an X on the part I'm not keeping. You notice that the blade is underneath here. You do not put your fingers near there. You keep your hands above the wood at all times. And it's usually best to keep them on, both on the jigsaw, but you might have to grab the wood to keep it from moving around sometimes, depending on how well you've clamped it. This is a portable router. It helps us clean up edges on pieces of wood that we want to make flush. They also help us make molding, crown, and base molding, and various other shapes in wood that we would like to see. Here we're going to do an example of a router on this piece of luan with this piece of pine. We've stapled the luan to the pine just a little over the side, so now we're going to make them flush when we turn this on. First things first, this is our no-go zone. This is where the action is happening on this drill bit. Here is also another no-go zone. That is a blade that is spinning very quickly. This right here is what is used to help keep the blade from just cutting all the way into the wood. It stops this from going into the pine. It cleans this up and keeps us from cutting off the pine. You can change the depth of your router blade by turning. Now you see we have a lot there, we have a lot more, and we have wood. So now I need to readjust. So we have less blade and just enough for the wood. That is just a little. That's good right there. And then this is your locking mechanism, so this does not go up and down. You have a varying speed. When we remove this wood, a lot of this wood is going to fly. It's going to create a lot of sawdust. And so you definitely want to have your PP on. If you are allergic to sawdust or you're sensitive to particles in the air, you might want to get a mask for this moment, which we have right here. There we go. You'll notice now how smoothly the luan and the pine meet. With our router, you'll notice now that the two pieces of wood are almost one. The luan and the pine are flush on the side. This helps for many looks in the theater. This is a circular saw. Most saws have a safety guard. On the circular saw, it is right here. This keeps your hands and fingers from being close to the blade, even when it's not on. It is good for cutting straight lines on very wide pieces of wood. Here we're going to do an example on this piece of plywood. There's your straight line, and this blade will go all the way to the other side. You start back here, you line up your blade. I want to keep this piece of wood, I'm getting rid of this piece of wood. So, put my X over there. Make sure you're clear of all debris. Make sure you're clamped down properly. Two good solid clamps. Make sure the clamps are not in line with the saw so you don't cut into the clamps. You have a zero line on here which can help you with your blade, but you still want to try to keep an eye on the blade itself. You want to start back just a little bit away. Make sure the safety is on, it's off. it's going to drop. And if it were longer wood, a longer piece of wood, it could bind or snap. I would have a sawhorse out here to keep that from falling. Here is our cut piece of wood. This one we are throwing away, and this is the one we're going to keep. Now we're going to use the bandsaw. Well, the jigsaw is really nice for very sharp, fine cuts. The bandsaw makes them even finer and cleaner, and you can create really defined shapes using the bandsaw. Our bandsaw, it has a nice table, is a bandsaw because it is a saw that is in the shape of a rubber band going around these gears, making it go very quickly. The blades do not discriminate between you or a piece of wood. And this is the inner workings of the bandsaw. You see our wheel, you see the saw itself moving with the wheel. And as we have said before, the blade does not discriminate. Well, that's it for tool training. Thank you for your time. And remember to always be safe. Wear the proper clothing, wear your PPE, wear the proper shoes. That way we keep your fingers, your toes, your ears, and your nose safe and with you at all times.
Whoa, whoa! What's with all this sawdust and mess in here?
On it.